Morning, everyone, and welcome to the Hertfordshire Fire Pensions Board meeting. Just a bit of housekeeping before we start. So we will be holding this meeting electronically, and members of the public may also attend in an electronic capacity, and there is a link on the council's website for them to do so. Members of the board, if I could ask you to keep your microphones switched off until you're called to speak, and to switch them off once you've finished speaking. Cameras, more than welcome to leave cameras on throughout the meeting if you wish, but cameras should be switched on if and when you are speaking in the meeting. Also, it would be really helpful to me if you could indicate your wish to speak by using the raise hand function. Use of the chat function is for exclusively for voting only. At the end of the debate on each item of business, there will be a vote for members, and you should use the vote using the meeting chat function, as I've said, by indicating for, against or abstain, and I will declare the result after each vote. Officers present, if I could ask you to follow the same protocols for the meeting as well. We will hold breaks every couple of hours, at least 15 minutes, and other breaks if required. Please just let me know if someone does require a break, and we'll do our best to accommodate that. So moving on to the order of business itself, we have no apologies for today. We are quorate with all four board members. And there's a couple of new board members that I'd like to welcome. So firstly, Councillor Mark Mills Bishop. Mark has been appointed to the board to represent the Fire Authority. His predecessor, Councillor Derek Ashley, stepped down in May 2021. Mark will also be completing the remainder of Derek's first year as the Vice Chairman of the board. So welcome, Mark. And secondly, welcome ACO Simon Toohill to the board. And Simon has just been appointed as the employer side permanent substitute. So welcome to Simon. So if I could ask members of the board just to introduce themselves, and then we'll move on to the next order of business. Thank you. Mark, if we could start with you, sorry.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome to my fellow colleagues. I'm very happy and pleased to be part of the board. I am an elected county councillor. I was elected in 2017. I represent a Broxbourne division. For 5 years, I was leader of Broxbourne Council. I was also the mayor of the borough. In my time at County Hall, I have been a member of the local government pension board in my first term of office. And I am also a former police officer. So I am very familiar with the emergency services, and I have a huge respect for firemen and women of the Hertfordshire and country service. So I'm very pleased to be part of this board, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mark, and welcome aboard. And yeah, it's good that that background and knowledge is going to be very helpful to us. So I look forward to working with you in the future. If we could then move on to Dan, if you could introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Dan Cooper, operational watch commander within the fire service. I've been sitting probably as a part member on this board for, I would say, about 4 years now, or obviously since it started. So in that time, I've slowly gathered an amount of information or knowledge as such. But yeah, it's quite heavy going. But it's nice to give my point of view from a real, don't want to say basic, but a lower level understanding of what it is the fire service or the firefighter pension members require as such.
Thank you, Dan. Jill, please.
Morning, everyone. My name is Jill Goodchild. I'm part of the board as the employer representative. I'm head of specialist services for community protection, and part of my portfolio is looking after pensions.
Thank you, Jill. And last but certainly not least, Simon, as our newest board member, would you just give us a quick introduction, please?
Good morning, everyone. Simon Toohill. I'm the Assistant Chief Fire Officer for Service Support. I've been with Hertfordshire Fire and Rescue just over a year now, having joined from the London Fire Brigade.
Thank you, Simon. Mark, I can see you've got your hand up. Did you want to say something now?
If I could, a slight correction. I think I mentioned the fact I was elected in 2017. In fact, I was elected in 2013. So it's my third term of office at County Hall.
Thanks for the clarification, Mark. Thank you. The next part is can just ask any members to declare any pecuniary or declarable interests. Clearly, preface that with some of us some of the members are members of the pension scheme. But are there any other of those types of things that anyone needs to declare? And I'll take silence as a no. Thank you very much. So let's move into the main part of business today. So we have 6 items on the agenda under part 1, but there are no part 2 parts of business that we need to deal with today. So the first is to, if I could ask the board to confirm that the minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of December 2020 are a correct record, and if you could just vote in the chat for me, please. Just waiting for a couple more to come through.
Apologies, Darren. I seem to be on the same internet as yourself, so bear with me. I'll be with you shortly.
No problem.
Dan, you can give your verbal agreement if you wish.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I wasn't present at the last meeting, so I've got an echo here. I wasn't present at the last meeting, so I'll say yes before I get this echo too annoying.
Thanks, all. So that is item 1. The minutes of the 18th of December 2020 meeting are agreed. So moving into the main part of this meeting, if I could invite John Crowhurst, who's the Commercial Director from LPPA, to present his report. Morning, John, and welcome. If you wouldn't mind, if you could just give us a brief rundown on your role within LPPA before you present the report, that would be much appreciated. Thank you.
Yep, no problem, Chairman. Good morning, everyone. Yep, so I'm John Crowhurst. I'm the Commercial Director at LPPA. My key role, I suppose, in working with you and the County Council is I'm your client relationship manager. So the day-to-day interactions and the regular client meetings and oversight that happens between the Fire and Rescue Service and LPPA, I sort of lead those discussions. And similarly on the County Council side, I'll do the same. So quite heavily involved in all of the activity that is being undertaken, and obviously I'm making sure that we provide the service that we've said we're going to in the agreed service level agreement. So that's me. You've in the pack for today, you've got the performance report, and I wasn't at the last meeting either, but I did note that my colleagues Neil and Tony took you through the new style of the report. So I won't do a page turn, but I'll draw out some key highlights and obviously happy to take questions. And then, Chair, if it's OK, it's probably worth me updating the board on our key strategic projects that we're undertaking for this year and next, which is where we're changing our core pensions administration system, which will impact obviously all of our clients. So I'll probably give an update on that, if that's OK. So in terms of performance, it's been good again for the period between April and June. Clearly we're in October now, so the Q2 performance report will be available shortly. A lot of the content within the report isn't necessarily in the service level agreement. At the moment, the service level agreement is aligned to sort of quantitative measures. So did we do something within the number of days it says we should, which is fine. But I think we all agree that it's important that we have those qualitative measures as well. So that's why we start to give a broader performance picture to the board, which includes elapsed times of cases, satisfaction scores, any engagement activity that we've undertaken on behalf of the fire and rescue service, and your data quality scores. So a new section within this particular report is the retirement section. I unfortunately haven't got the page numbers of your pack, but if you are on the performance report that I've put in the pack, it's page 15 in the LPPA report. And there's a whole section on retirements, and what we're looking at is one of our key KPIs is or it's a concept of no break in pension payments. So an example being, if somebody is active in service this month and they retire at the end of October, they'll receive their last salary payment at the end of October. And then in an ideal world, we pay the first pension payment at the end of November. So we're reporting on that, and obviously making sure that we're doing everything that we can within our control to pay people within those 30 days. The number of retirees for Hertfordshire is relatively low, but it's good to see that pretty much everyone does get paid within those 30 days. Things that can impact our ability to pay members is obviously when we're notified of the retirement, and then sometimes members have got complex process to go through at their end. They may have tax implications that they need to work through, and sometimes that can delay the payment. But I think it's good that we can report on this, and that we're making sure that we're doing everything that we possibly can to facilitate that payment. The help desk performance, you can see that the wait times have gone right down below our aspirational target of 4 minutes. One of the main reasons for that is we've introduced a number of redirects when calls hit a certain amount of time in the queue. So the intention now is that if somebody is in the queue and it reaches, I think it's 5 or 6 minutes, that they will be redirected to a group. It's a little bit more complex for the people within the help desk that oversee the fire scheme, because we've only got a limited number of resources to understand it. It's more complex than the LGPS, and we are in the process of training more people within our help desk to be able to take those calls. But the good news is those wait times are a lot less than they were at the end of the last financial year. One of the other things that we look at is something that we call the resolution rate. So when somebody contacts us by phone, how often is that query resolved at first point of contact? You'll see that for the last quarter it was hovering between 67 and 76%. The way that we measure that is when somebody calls us, if we do not set a case up in our workflow system, and then we assume that the query was resolved at first point of contact. But the reality is a lot of the inquiries that we get from fire scheme members can be complex, which does result in a case being created in the workflow system for our operational teams to handle. And obviously we'll respond to those queries within the agreed SLA timeframes. But again, it's good that we've got visibility around this information so that we can see, if we are starting to see an increase in query types, are there things that we can be doing to be more proactive by updating the website and things like that. The last thing I'll mention on the performance report, and then I'm happy to pause and take questions before I update you on the project, is just your data quality scores, which are really good. So you have a common data score and a conditional data score. On the common data score, it's always missing deferred addresses that create the errors. So we use an external supplier that will help us trace those members. We're about to undertake an exercise on behalf of the rescue service for the 27 deferred members. We'll make contact with the HR department to try and track down the 6 active members that we haven't got an address for. And on the conditional data score, that is really good compared to a lot of the schemes that we work with. That we've just completed the GMP reconciliation exercise for you, which is one of the main reasons why your score has increased over that last period. You can see there's still small numbers there. So our data team over the next 6 months will be looking at resolving those remaining outstanding items. So hopefully we can see those scores both go in excess of 99%, which is great. So I'll pause there, Chair. I'm happy to take questions on the report, and then I can give an update on the project.
Thank you, John. Really helpful. So I'll start with a couple of comments, really, more than anything else. So I think one of the things that was really welcome, certainly from my perspective, and it was raised by one of the other board members in a previous meeting, which I know you weren't at, which was around the call times, and that's clear. You can see from the report that that's been significantly addressed, which is really welcome. What ties in with that, and you mentioned around the number of retirees being low. It was also pleasing to hear that you said that you're increasing the number of staff that can deal with the complex nature of fire service pension schemes, because I suspect that moving forward, those numbers will be increasing significantly, and it's good that you're already ahead of that. So I just wanted to thank you for all of your work and for the report as well, because certainly in my time sitting on this board, the quality and the quantity of data that has been provided is significantly increased and has been really helpful to us. So thank you for that. I will open it up now. Does anyone have any questions for John on the Q1 report? That, I think, is a no. Thank you. So if you wanted to just mention those other bits and pieces you were talking about, John, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. So, and I don't know if we've updated you previously on this. So we undertook an exercise we joined a framework to look at system providers in the marketplace, and following that exercise, we've decided to appoint Civica and use their UPM product from next year. So for Hertfordshire Fire and Rescue Service, we will be moving across to that new system in February next year. So we are obviously well into the implementation of that project at the moment. So just to give you some reassurance of some of the activity that we're undertaking and why we're doing it. So at the moment, we're taking a number of data cuts from the existing system and obviously migrating them over to the test environment of the new system. We've got 5 data cuts before we go live. There's lots of activity to make sure that the integrity of the data is maintained as it transfers across. There's a couple of additional checks that we're doing at our end, where we will run things like your pensions regulator scores. We'll run them in our existing system and in the new system to make sure they're coming out as expected. And there's a universal data extract file that's used by any of the government departments that want to see information around the pension scheme. It's a standard file across all of the systems that are used in the market. So again, we're going to run those in parallel in the 2 systems and make sure that the data is as expected. In my opinion, and I will say this to Patrick, the harder part to this project is not necessarily the data migration, even though it's high risk and we need to make sure that it happens successfully. The harder part, in my opinion, is what we call the business readiness side. So that's all about stakeholder management, engagement, training and communications, because things will change for members of the scheme that are interacting with us, for you as an employer interacting with us, and for our own staff members using the system. So we have undertaken a lot of work to make sure that on go live, the service continues as expected. We pay pensioners. People don't experience any delay in us responding to queries, which is great. But one of the things that adds complexity for us is that we've got there's a group of clients that go live in phase 1 between January and February next year, and we've got a group of clients that go live between September and October next year. So what we're having to do is split our operational teams between those that will work on the new system and the clients that will migrate across, and those that will stay working on the old system and those clients that will stay there. And obviously what we need to make sure is that we get that balance right in terms of the resource split. Because if we don't, then it will be difficult, I think, for us to manage the service. So lots of work is going into that. What we will be providing officers with is an overview of our plan on what post go live looks like from a service perspective. So, you know, if there is any contingency that we need to put in place or any resilience that we've introduced, we'll give visibility of that. Obviously, we're looking for clients to sort of endorse the approach that we're taking. If we do start to experience longer wait times in the help desk, we'll be really proactive in making sure that messages go on the IVR, that we make it clear how you can interact with us during that transitional period. So I think for me to turn around and say there won't be any impact at go live is probably unrealistic. But what I will say is we'll obviously manage that appropriately when we move into that new system. Some of the benefits of moving to the new system, there's quite a few. There's quite a lot of new functionality that we're going to introduce to members. So one of the functionalities that will be available on go live for members is deferred members will be able to retire online, so we'll be able to manage that process online end to end. It's not for everyone, so when members may choose not to do it that way, but it will be available. And something else that will be there is a function called Track My Case. So at the moment we do receive a lot of calls across the board from people just asking where we are with the case that we've got ongoing. So people will be able to log into the self-service portal and see that for themselves and interact with us via that portal. And then from an employer's perspective, we've got a new employer hub that will be launched where we hope to interact through that portal on any activity relating to the pension scheme. So at the moment, and Rachel will know if we've got queries, we do correspond via email. Other different people pick up the queries, and it's just difficult to manage. Whereas if it's all in one system and the right people have got access to it, then everyone knows where we are with a particular process. So it's a big program of work for us, but just to sort of reassure the board that we have been providing status updates and will continue to do so, and we will give visibility around what that post go live looks like for the fire and rescue service. So I'll pause there. Thank you, Chairman. Happy to take any questions on that.
Thank you, John. Yeah, quite clearly a significant bit of work there that needs to take place, and as you've said, we'll look forward to any progress reports and any issues that you need to raise with us. I'll open it up to, do any board members, or for that matter anyone else, have any questions for John on that last item that he's discussed with us? Patrick, yes, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just a comment that officers from the HCC side are working very closely with John and his colleagues, monitoring progress, because this is a significant project for LPPA. I wouldn't downplay how big a project this is. It's moving hundreds of thousands of member data from one provider to another, and so they are doing various tests, taking different data sets, migrating them into the new system, into a test bed and new system, getting feedback of the results from those, doing further checks, making adjustments. And so I think, John, when we had a conversation the other day, we talked about the LGPS scheme, but it's similar for the fire scheme. He gave us some updates with regard to the latest data set results and how this is progressing. But I agree with John completely that the migration part of it is probably the easiest part. It's post go live, how you get employers and members used to the new forms, the website, what that looks like, the member portal, the interaction there. But that, with anything, there is a bit of a learning curve, but we're hopeful that we can get some communications out to members, sharing them with this board to give you updates, and hopefully that there won't be too much interruption to business as usual, but we have discussed what would happen if there is interruption and what we would prioritise. And John has come back and quite clearly we would prioritise putting pensions into payments, pensioner payments, dealing with the death grants and putting those into payments to survivors, families, families of the deceased. So we would prioritise that, and there'll be a sort of monitoring of performance through these reports that come to board. Thank you, Chairman.
Thanks, Patrick. Mark, I think you've got a question as well.
Yeah, thank you. I think Patrick actually touched upon my thoughts about communication, and my question was around communication. How robust are we, or will we be, in terms of communicating the migration over to members? And really a question to John. I mean, it is a complex, huge piece of work. I just wonder if there's been any initial feedback that you've got, either through member participation or through the or through county. So robustness in terms of communication and feedback. John, thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. So, in terms of the robustness of the communication, I'll take that one first. So we've got two work streams. There are 3 work streams within the project around comms and training. One is to clients, clearly, so that you know what's going on. And if your employers ask questions, if you know exactly the position. And then we've got a member comms work stream and an employer comms work stream. From a member's perspective, the key for us is you're still going to be interacting with us in the same ways. We're still going to have the help desk. None of that interaction will change, but it will be the member portal that changes. So you'll be able to do more. Obviously, we're going to publish these statutory documents that we need to issue via that portal. So there's two challenges for us. One is getting people re-registered and making that as painless as possible. There's a bit in the middle. You've got people that haven't registered at the moment, so we've got an opportunity to get them engaged because they can do more via that portal. And the third is what can we do to help members self-serve? Now, what we have done in the past is we've started to introduce some explainer videos to our websites. So we had lots of inquiries about a year ago from members that were struggling to register with the existing portal. And then our team were, spending 5-10 minutes a call talking people through how you register. That registration process will be more straightforward in the new system. But we built an explainer video that was about 45 seconds long, put it on the website and started directing members to that. And the feedback from that explainer video was, this just makes it so much easier. So I think, when we're introducing a new functionality within the portal, I think we should continue along the path of putting explainer videos out there. Our engagement team do provide support. I think pre-COVID world, it was probably more difficult for us to get out and speak to members and employers in large groups. It was always difficult to get people at a venue and book the venue itself, whereas now we've got this opportunity to speak to people through Teams. So our engagement team are on hand to run workshops and seminars for members and employers, talking through the changes that we're making. Obviously, making sure people are clear on what we need and why we need it, and if there's challenges at the other end, that we get feedback and we deal with those as proactively as we can. So I think that probably answers both questions in a way, Mark.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Reassured. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Jill.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. It's just a bit of an observation to add on to that. As the board are probably aware, not all our firefighters have easy access to technology. If we can always bear that in mind, certainly maybe at home they do, but in the workplace they don't. I mean, that is something we are looking at as a county council, and I think Dan's obviously coming there possibly to back that up. But it's always worth noting that for us as an employer. Thank you.
Yeah, Dan, I know you'll probably be able to speak from experience on this, so please do.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's like Jill mentioned, really, that the technology on the station is quite limited at times with a limited number. So is there a way of accessing it via apps or via mobile phones? I know a lot of people would prefer that. And also my second question was, with the re-registering or the registering of employees, how is that going to be communicated out to the pension members? I know the previous we've discussed we still have pay slips in the post, document of wording or information on that, directing people. How are members going to be advised of where to go to re-register or register into this? Thank you, Jill.
Thank you, Jill, and thank you, Dan. Yeah, so I think first thing I'll mention is we agree. The online portal is not. Everyone's not going to want to use it. Everyone's not going to be in a position to have easy access to it. So people that want to opt out and continue receiving hard copy correspondence, that's still going to be an option. I think the approach that we'll take around the comms and the re-registration, I think we're going to have to take different approaches. So people that are already registered and have used it, we'll communicate via email because we're already interacting in that way. Clearly, people that haven't provided their email address and haven't engaged, I think we're going to have to do hard copy communications in the post to explain what we're doing. What we will have to do as part of that exercise as well is sort of sell the benefits of obviously interacting with us online and make it clear that how can you access it in an easy way. So there isn't an app, Dan, in response to your question. There won't be an app, but that you will be able to access the portal via a web browser on the phone. So whether or not that helps, but yeah, there won't be an app. But I think we make it clear, what methods you can engage with us and access the portal. And I think if we make that clear, hopefully we can use this as an opportunity to get more people hopefully registered, because it is appreciating that it's not accessible to everyone. It is obviously easier for us to get out and give the communications that we need to the scheme members if we can do it online. But agree, it's not going to be a one size fits all.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, John. Just to echo, really, I think you probably, with your statistics and your percentages, I imagine a lot of people take an active interest in this as they reach a certain length of their career. So the ones that don't register are maybe the ones that are very new to the pension scheme, and it's almost probably our duty really to ensure that it gets pushed enough so everybody can take part. But that's fine. Thanks for your answer.
No problem.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Thanks, John. Unless there are any other comments, which I will pause briefly just in case anyone else wants to speak. No, okay, great. Could I just ask members then to use the chat function to whether they agree to note the contents of this of John's report, please? Great, thank you. That's unanimous. So thank you for your report, John. It was really helpful, and we look forward to updates on progress and how it's going with the big, huge challenge that you've got ahead of you. So good luck with that. So next item of business is from Rachel. Welcome, Rachel. And Rachel's going to give us two reports today. The first of which is the Firefighter Pension Scheme website and the Matthews Sargent survey.
Hello, thank you. So I'm Rachel Wilson. I'm the HR manager of the strategy and reward team, and part of our remit is employer pensions. The first report is on the employer website, the Firefighter Scheme website, and also the Matthews Sargent survey from the LGA. So the website, this is the first national website for the Firefighters Pension Scheme, launched by the LGA back in May 2021. It's designed to be a central resource for everybody to access, and it's based on the scheme rules. The homepage has a section for each of the 4 schemes, and they are based on the current rules as they stand at the moment. Obviously, there's lots of changes planned in the firefighters' pension schemes, and the plan is that they will come in real time on the website, which will be sort of a helpful resource for the firefighters, so they'll be able to kind of access information, news and updates about the McLeod remedy on the website. We have got links on our own intranet and also on the HFRS Pension Hub. There's links to the LGA site, and the address is in the report, but it's fpsmember.org, so it's quite simple, should be quite easy to remember. Does anybody have any questions on the website before I move on to the survey? No? Okay, so the survey, this was issued some time back as well, back in May. It was issued by the LGA. It was just kind of gauge authorities' preparedness for the Matthews and also the Sergeant remedies to sort of, which was really good because it got us thinking about actually how prepared are we. There's quite a few questions on the survey. It was quite detailed. So in conjunction with the HR team, Serco Payroll, LPPA, and also Herts Finance, we kind of got our heads together and answered the questions. So it's quite good for us all to sort of, start thinking about these 2 projects. And I think the risks it kind of highlighted is mainly about resource. So extracting the data from the payroll, I think we're kind of quite confident on our data, but it is the time involved in retrieving the data, particularly in the Matthews case, if we have to go back and search for historical records on the microfiche, and also for LPPA. They're 2 big projects for LPPA, and they're going to take lots of resource for them. And I believe the results are going to be reported, well, they should have been reported back to SAB in September. So hopefully there'll be an update on their views on those. Okay. Any questions about the survey?
Thank you, Ray. Thank you. I think you touched on it there. My understanding is it's 1978, isn't it? Is the a challenge, to say the least. And you mentioned microfiche, which is yeah. That sort of gives an indication of how far back things have got to go. So yeah, I don't envy that. Does anyone have any questions for Rachel on those 2 items at all? Yes, Jill.
Thanks, Chair. It might not be the right place to bring this in, but I'll bring it in anyway. And if you want to ask me to leave it to the end, Chair, that's fine. It's just around the removal of the individual support around annual allowances and lifetime allowances. I know that's a decision that's possibly been made, but it's possibly an observation on the fire and rescue pension that this can impact managers who are possibly not even senior managers. And I know there's quite a lot of strong feeling that's something that they'd like to maintain. So it's just an ask there, really, while we've got everyone in the room. Thank you, Chair.
No, thank you, Jill, and I'm more than happy for that to be asked now. Patrick, did you want to comment on that question? Is it?
Yeah, I will, because in the past the LPPA have offered a service to provide some sort of guidance, and I'm going to err carefully on the word used. It is guidance and it's not advice. And Neil Lewins, who is on this call, he's a specialist technical officer from the LPPA, but the nature of the sort of advice, guidance that officers are seeking with regard to annual and lifetime allowance is for tax purposes, and it is an FCA regulated activity, and the LPPA and any officer would be nervous about providing any sort of advice to a fire officer or an employee in the county council, who then go and act upon it when the officer providing the advice guidance is not FCA regulated. It could come back and it could result in potential litigation if the individual who took the took the advice, guidance, went off and acted upon it. And if that guidance was inappropriate, there are significant repercussions. And so that's why the LPPA are no longer providing, or well, they never provided an advice service. It was always just a sort of a conversation about the options available, and then it is up to those officers to go away and seek independent advice. I know HR have put in place an external company, Affinity, I think it is, Rachel, that we use, who can do these sessions with officers, but we can no longer, as county council officers or the LPPA, their officers can no longer provide this guidance, because we are not, it's a regulated activity. It's financial advice.
Thank you, Patrick. Yeah, I'm aware of the recent seminar that was held. I think there were a number of members that found that really useful, and as Jill alluded to, some of those that aren't earning huge sums of money, and where that can create a problem for them as well. So it was a bit of a surprise to some. I'll put it no more firmly than that. Neil, did you want to comment on that as well, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I mean, Patrick covered really obviously the headlines that I wanted to talk about. But the only point I'd say, it's also the whole area is just becoming ever more complicated, and the judgments that Rachel was referring to, it just adds to that, and that just adds to the unease and the concern about supplying information which could be construed as financial advice, and that's where we've just had to be. It feels frustrating, from both sides, from all sides, but it is because of the risks that is the reason that we've had to take the steps we have taken. But we will, of course, always try to help as much as we can, and we appreciate that we will always be providing information for people who possibly are needing to take that to those independent financial advisors.
Thank you, Neil. Rachel, did you want to come back in on any of that, or are you happy at this point?
Yeah, I'm happy at this point.
Okay, so any other questions on Rachel's first report? No. Okay, so we're at the board members who are invited again. If you're content, if you could just let me know in the chat that you agree, or at least note the first report from Rachel. Thank you. Fantastic. So that report is duly noted. Thank you for that one, Rachel. So it's back to you again now for the second one, which is the Matthews O'Brien and the retained modified exercises. Another huge piece of work.
Yeah. So this paper is really, I suppose it's just to refresh ourselves of what happened in the first options exercise, and then to kind of just give the heads up about this second options exercise that's coming. So the 1992 scheme was only ever kind of open to whole-time firefighters. The on-call retained firefighters were not eligible for that scheme. They've only been eligible for the 2006 pension scheme since April 2006. So the first case was the Matthews and Kenton Medways Town case. So that was the retained firefighters brought a case since the introduction of the part-time working regulations, that part-time workers shouldn't be treated any less favourably than a full-time worker, to say that they should be receiving equal treatment and allowed access to the 1992 pension scheme. The House of Lords ruled in their favour, and so it was determined that the on-call firefighters were allowed backdated entry into a pension scheme with effect from the 1st of July 2000, because that's the date that the part-time workers regulations were introduced. As the 1992 pension scheme was closed, they had to sort of introduce this special section into the 2006 scheme, which is sometimes called the Special Retained Modified Scheme. There's kind of quite a few names for it, special members. And the benefits are similar to the 1992 benefits. And I think in the report there's a table of a sort of a comparison of the benefits there. So the first options exercise took place from April 2014 until the 30th September 2015. The fire authorities had to kind of identify who they thought were the eligible individuals, people who were employed between July 2000 and April 2006, and write out to them asking if they would like to receive a statement of their service and the sort of the cost of buying back that pension. LPP then produced all these statements and sent them out to everybody, and the members could elect whether they wanted to join the scheme or not, and they had to make those elections by the 30th of September 2015. It was very labour intensive. There was lots of work involved with HR. We had to pull together reports with payroll, write out to people. You know, there was confusions not having correct addresses, and then people would kind of contact us as well. And it was also very labour intensive for LPPA to kind of pull up these statements and, you know, do the communications with the members as well. Now there's been a second case. It's the O'Brien and the kind of Ministry of Justice case. It's with part-time judges, and the part-time judges have said that they should be allowed to count their pension service prior to July 2000. The European Court of Justice has agreed, and the government has said that it will kind of honour this, and so the on-call retained firefighters will be allowed to count bits of service prior to July 2000 within their pension calculations. So we are waiting now for the second options exercise. The regulations will need to be laid, consulted on, and before they were given sort of timescales in that legislation, how we had to do things. But so we're all still waiting. And I suppose the risks are, again, this is a significant amount of work for HR, payroll, LPP, and it is probably likely going to fall at the same time as McLeod Sargent, when that's already creating lots of work for us. And I suppose if we do have to find records that go back to 1978, there is a kind of risk about how, you know, do we even have that data and how accurate it might be if we're looking on microfiche for it. Okay, so I think, yeah, that's the report. Any questions?
No, I don't think there are, Rachel. I think, yeah, so, yeah, thank you for that. And again, we do recognise absolutely. Oh, apologies, Mark, I didn't see your hand there. Please do come in.
Yeah, sorry, I was just thinking out loud to myself, and Rachel, those members who have passed, how do you deal with them? Do you are they paid to the estate, or how do you deal with those?
Oh, good question. Do you want to help me out, Neil?
I was just going to say, do you want me to jump in at this point? You know, we anticipate that the regulations will allow for deceased members to be covered, because obviously there could be partners that are due pensions as well. As always, the devil is in the detail as to how the wording of the regulations is put together. But it is one of the anxieties is we're going back a long way. 1978. You know, it's a long time, and so we will have cases where quite possibly both the member and the surviving partner have died, and so the detail as to how far and what is done to identify, because who do you contact if both members are dead? Where do you draw the line? So there's. I know that the LGA have been having conversations about with the Home Office about setting. They won't use the term sensible or pragmatic parameters, but that's as far as I'm concerned. It's you know, I think that they need to set sensible parameters that we can work within as to where we set those details out. But there is always, if you set a limit, there's a danger that somebody will challenge it legally, and so you know, that is part of the battle that I know the Home Office are trying to square off. but we do accept that that is definitely going to be part of the challenge. Is we'll be dealing with cases where the originating member has since died, but there is still potentially benefits to come through. I don't know if it's useful, Chair. Rachel mentioned about the delights of referring to microfilm and going back, to the 70s. One of the proposals that has been put forward to the Home Office through the LGA is that where pay details aren't easily available, and let's face it, they're never going to be easily available, is that there is a proposal that an average hours and average pay for each of the years available is designed to be put together, is hoped to be put together so that the employer would hopefully only have to evidence the at the start date. Then if the member is able to come up with evidence that would suggest that they were working greater hours or on higher pay, we could then deal with those individual cases. It hasn't been confirmed to me that has been accepted, but I think, again, trying to come up with a pragmatic solution, I think that has got a chance of being at least workable, because I think that, Rachel, the fact that you even mentioned that you've got microfiche records is, I suspect, an awful lot better than a lot of FRAs around the country will be. I mean, there'll be many FRAs who will have changed payroll providers many times in that sort of time. So trying to actually come up with evidence is going to be very, very challenging. The other solution was to try to get some details from national insurance records from HMRC. That was also being talked about. So I'm hoping there'll be some pragmatic solutions which might take some of the legwork out, but it's not in our myself or Rachel. It's the devil will be in the detail as to what comes out in the regulations, of course. Hopefully that helps.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you, Neil, and thank you, Rachel. That is really helpful, and it's certainly not lost on us the huge challenge that creates. And as always, it just puts even further pressure on the resources that you've got to actually deal with those issues. Not to mention some of the more pressing and more recent issues that have arisen as well. So thank you for the report. Are there any other comments or questions for anyone for Rachel from anyone before I ask board members to note the contents of this one? No? Okay, great. So if board members could just let us know if they're happy to note the content, please. Fantastic, thank you. So that report is noted. I will mention briefly the date of future meetings, and then I'll open it up if there are any other areas of urgent business that anyone wants to raise. I know there have been a few very recent changes that might be a topic of discussion. I'm more than happy to allow that to happen. So the next meeting, not too far away, is the 10th of December, and then the two meetings for the earlier part of 2022 are the 22nd of March and the 20th of July, and they are all 10 a.m. starts. So other than that, if anyone has got anything that they want to raise, then I will. I'm happy to take that. So thank you, Jill.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's probably worth a little bit of a discussion of the board around immediate detriment, where we are as an organisation, and particularly what is the direction of travel around the framework and the MOU. I know Rachel and I have been talking about this, but it's probably worth just sharing where we are with the board.
No, absolutely, Jill. Yeah, that's a very recent update that we definitely need to hear about. So thank you.
Do you want me to provide a short update? So we are currently processing immediate detriment cases. The scheme manager made the decision to use the informal Home Office guidance. So we've got a few cases that we've been processing using that guidance. Obviously on Friday, the 8th of October, the new statement came out, the Memorandum of Understanding, and there's been some additional guidance from LGA. So we're just working through the guidance, what it means, need to have some discussions with LPPA. And then the plan is that I kind of put together just a bit of a briefing paper for the scheme manager to see whether we're going to adopt the framework or not.
Thank you, Rachel. So this is one that certainly scheme members are talking about, and they are aware. I think it has been certainly widely publicised by the one of the parties to the MOU, the Fire Brigades Union, that it is available. And no doubt you will have already, if you haven't already, you will very soon be receiving letters asking if I am in scope, as it were, for that. And I know that the timescales that are included in that MOU are challenging. I suppose my question would be, clearly it is very new. Here we are on the 15th, so it's only a week ago that it was received. Could you give us any indication of when it's likely that the decision will be made as to whether the authority will adopt the MOU?
I wouldn't want to commit to anything, but I mean, I would hope to be in a position. I mean, it depends obviously on discussions with various parties, but I would hope that I could start writing a paper next week. But yeah, I wouldn't want to commit to that. But my plan would be, if all goes well in conversations, that I could start writing a briefing paper next week and get a decision made. But without having had all the kind of the conversations with different parties yet, yeah, I wouldn't like to commit, but I would hope that we could come to a decision fairly quickly.
No, thank you. And I'm certainly not asking you to commit to give us a date or anything like that. It's just that it is, there are a number of members that have already retired that should have an increase in pension, and there are members that are sitting waiting to find out when they can retire. And I think there was some issues around and again, I understand the organisation, the Fire Authority, in terms of the using the Home Office informal guidance, but that did prove problematic for some members as well. So I think it is, what I suppose I'm pleased to hear is that work is happening at pace to try and come to a decision as soon as possible. So that's good to hear. Jill, did you want to come in?
Yeah, I think it's just worth noting that Rachel, particularly in the strategy award team, have handled this kind of difficult situation really well. And I know they've had some pressure from members, but the 6 cases that we are currently looking at have been handled very professionally and well by that team. So I think I'd like that noted in the minutes, please.
Oh, thank you, Jill.
Of course, absolutely. Are there any other points on that particular on the MOU from anyone else? No. Okay. What I'll probably do then is I do have a couple. They may come up from others, so I'll save those. So if I'll just go round the virtual room in no particular order, starting on my top left. So Patrick.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that because the nature of this board, and we have got new members on the board, we are really thinking about how we upskill members of the board and give them knowledge so that they are informed when they see these papers. We're going to work closely with the LPPA as to how we can upskill members of the board, what sort of training we can provide. We'll look to the LGA. Some of it might be in the form of, we can do a sort of training session as part of the meeting, but some of it may be directing you to a particular website where you can get some background information about a particular issue or case. There's a lot of the work that Rachel brought to you today was around legal cases, and it'd be I think board members would be interested to know, okay, that legal case has gone through the system. What are the consequences of it for members and for the employer authority? So we are going to have some officers are going to have some discussions about how we can develop a training programme for members of this board. Thanks, Chairman.
No, thank you, Patrick. So that was certainly one that was on my list, so I'm really grateful for that. As you know, this meeting is usually scheduled for sort of 3 hours, and here we are. I know the agenda will be getting bigger in the future, but certainly one of the considerations is whether we can find time within the meeting for some training, because everyone's time is precious. So we'll perhaps have a conversation outside of this meeting about how we do that, and whether we do some sort of thematic training. You've already touched on that, Patrick, around the legal aspect. So maybe that's a good one, and certainly with new board members. And there are a number of pension schemes and there are all slightly different. So yeah, we'll have a discussion about how that's best served, and then look to perhaps see what the agendas look like for future meetings and whether we can put something in. But thank you. Neil, any other business from yourself?
Well, I'll just touch on the training that was raised. It just, I can see that there is something that I could possibly be part of the answer on that. It is something that has been touched on with one or two of the other fire boards. We've done some informal, like a 10-15 minute session at either at the start or the end of a pension board meeting. Often on things like pensions increase and things like that. Not necessarily the changes that are happening now. In fact, we've deliberately stayed away from some of the more contentious issues. But that might be something that I could have a word with Patrick about and yourself, and if that would be useful, I'm sure we could do something on those lines. As far as any other business, well, it's not any other business. It is everything to do with the framework and almost whatever decisions we are taken, we know that we've got an awful lot of work, whichever way it's put together, and going to have an awful lot of queries coming through from members. So I think that, tying back to the report that John was showing with the wait times and things like that, I think we're going to have it's only right to sort of managing expectations to realise that the resources are going to be put under an awful lot of pressure over the next 6 months. Well, realistically, I would suggest it's going to be longer than that. I mean, if we're not talking about actual remedy being in place until October 2023, it is an awful lot of cases, as I say, almost irrespective of what decisions are made on framework, that we're going to have a lot of queries coming through and a lot of casework that's going to be dealt with. And the casework is much more complex than it would be if it wasn't for the legal challenges that are going on. So it's not anything new. It's just if you see some of the indicators in John's report over the next couple of quarters going in the wrong direction, it won't be because people are twiddling their thumbs, I can assure you.
No, thank you, Neil. That absolutely is recognised, I know, by all board members. Thank you. Rachel?
Nothing from me.
Thank you. John?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just to sort of add to what Neil said, really, and what I mentioned earlier about the resources at our end. So we've obviously got a team at the moment that's set up to deal with the BAU activity. What we've done over the last few months is that team's going to double in size at least. There isn't, you'll probably not be surprised here, there isn't a lot of people dotted around waiting to come and work for LPPA that understand the fire scheme. So we have got quite a rigorous training program to undertake. We're getting that balance between trying to recruit people with pensions knowledge within the industry, and we've also moved some people with local government experience from our existing teams into the fire team. Because obviously they've got a working knowledge of pensions, they understand our system. So, we're trying to be as proactive as we possibly can be at this stage in the planning and preparation for all of the work that we've got to undertake. So I just thought I'd just add that. Thank you, Chairman.
No, thank you, John. Dan.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just to echo, the increase in training would obviously enhance me, and obviously we're looking for a new member representative, which will be probably starting from fresh as well. So there was quite a few years back now, I went to London and did a training day that LFB hosted. I don't know if that is still available, but obviously as and when we recruit a new member representative, that's probably something I would happily chaperone them to. But in terms of any other business, no, thank you. It's been a while since we got together, but thanks for the meeting and appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Mark?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nothing from me.
Thank you, Mark. Jill? No, I think that's a no. I think I can see a shake.
Sorry, no, thank you.
Okay, great. Simon? I'm going to take silence as a no. So I think that's it, unless anyone's got any, one last chance. Anyone else got anything to say? No, perfect. Well, thank you all for attending today. Particularly welcome to the new members of the board. And I'm sure you'll benefit from the training plans that we've got, and certainly they will be really helpful moving forward. Thanks to everyone for your reports. Really informative. And I look forward to seeing you all again, or at least some of you, on the 10th of December.
Thank you, Darren.
Thank you.
Bye. Have a good weekend, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.